Vrenthal Kaur, lead economist, finalized the Centennial Trade Report. Then he saw it 78% of all galactic transactions of the past century in US dollars.
That can't be right. Run it again. Still 78%. Coalition credits, exchange units, all dwarfed by Earth's dollar. Secretary Korvath, I am sending you a finding. You'll want to sit down.
Treasury Secretary Korvath Vex opened the report in his grand office. His 3 eyes went wide. The ornate robes shook as he gripped the hollow display.
78%? No treaty, no vote. And we never noticed.
On the trading floor below, the data had already spread. Hundreds of alien traders stared as every screen flooded with green dollar symbols. A murmur became a roar. Panicked traders shouted queries, but the system only confirmed it. The dollar reigned.
Get to the bottom of this, Vrenthal. I want a full history. And don't let Earth know we're investigating.
Vrenthal stared at the 78%. A century of trade data hid a secret no one had seen. How did a single planet's currency conquer the galaxy without a treaty, vote, or declaration? The answer would change everything. Vrenthal dove into the Coalition's deepest archives. He ran every trade algorithm, every historical query he could design.
The pattern emerges, 2287. Before that, nothing, then a trickle of dollar transactions, all small, all private.
The records showed alien freight captains on fringe routes, accepting green paper slips for emergency supplies. A dusty thesis from a long-dead economist praised Earth's central bank. Predictable, transparent, immune to political panic.
They just liked it better. No propaganda, no pressure, simple market choice.
By 2320, the trickle was a habit. No treaty, no ceremony, just merchants who trusted Earth's boring stability.
I've studied 100 fiscal crises across the Coalition, but Earth's currency never crashed. Not once.
Vrenthal leaned back. The timeline glowed. A century of silent conquest, built on nothing but reputation.
This wasn't a scheme. It was just reliable. Perhaps the most dangerous trait in galactic finance.
The full picture still eluded him, but one thing was certain. He needed to understand how Earth achieved what no one else could. Vrenthal stood before the Coalition Council, holographic charts glowing behind him. The Centennial Report had become an indictment.
The data is conclusive. 78% of all interspecies transactions over a century denominated in dollars. No treaty, no formal recognition.
He highlighted the timeline. The green line began climbing in 2287, never dipping. A silent, persistent rise that no one had questioned. The chamber erupted. Delegates from a dozen species shouted over each other, disbelief, fury, and a creeping shame.
Are you telling us that for over a century, we've been funding their economy without even realizing it?
Earth's central bank maintained price stability when we couldn't. Their currency is boring, predictable, and that's why it won.
A junior economist whispered that the Coalition's own pension fund was 60% in USD. The admission spread through the room like a disease.
This is a humiliation. Find me options, Vrenthal. Ways to reclaim our sovereignty. And keep it quiet.
Options. As if economics could be undone by decree. The market has spoken for a century.
The council disbanded in chaos. No decision yet. Only orders to investigate. But the damage was done. Earth had won without firing a single credit. Vrenthal found internal payments routinely made in dollars. The Coalition's own bureaucracy had silently adopted Earth's currency. On a dusty station, an old merchant told him, "The dollar never inflates. Your Coalition credits crash every decade." Across a dozen interviews, traders echoed the same. Earth's central bank was reliable, boring, and that trust was priceless.
They didn't conquer by ambition. The dollar won by inertia, the most unstoppable force in economics.
He took his findings to Korvath. The numbers proved it. This wasn't a policy problem, but a century of deeply embedded trust.
So their boring stability conquered us. No plot, no threat, just inertia.
Secretary, They never asked for this. They simply never failed, and the galaxy chose accordingly.
Then we demand they stop. Summon Edward Reeves. Let Earth explain its accidental empire.
The formal demand was drafted that night. Earth would receive a summons to answer for a century of silent dominance. Across the trading floors, screens still glowed green with dollar signs. The market had already made its choice. The protest arrived at Earth's treasury. Edward Reeves read it with the same calm he'd held for decades.
They want an explanation for the dollar's dominance. I'll give them one, in person.
He pulled a single $1 bill from his desk drawer. A century of conquest, folded into paper. Edward traveled alone to the Coalition's Grand Tower, a single briefcase in hand. Inside, alien guards lined the corridor, their stares sharp with resentment. He walked past without a glance.
They think this is a trial. It's just the market speaking through me.
He looks unbothered, as if 78% were a rounding error.
The massive doors of the council chamber slid open. Edward stepped into the arena of his accusers. Korvath loomed from his perch. The silence was heavier than the accusations. Edward looked up, the dollar bill still hidden in his palm, his expression unreadable. The galaxy waited for his answer. Korvath's voice boomed through the chamber, heavy with accusation.
Secretary Reeves, the Coalition accuses Earth of economic imperialism. Your dollar dominates our trade without consent.
Blunt accusation. But Edward doesn't even flinch.
We never asked for this. We never required it. We simply maintained price stability and let the market choose.
From his palm, he lifted a single $1 bill, holding it up for the council to see.
This piece of paper represents a promise we have kept for centuries. No inflation crises, no defaults. The Coalition is free to use any currency, but you'll need a central bank that doesn't collapse under political pressure.
A murmur swept the council. Korvath's 3 eyes narrowed to slits. The meeting ended without resolution. Edward had given them no target, only a mirror. He left the chamber, the dollar bill still in his hand. The accusation of imperialism had evaporated into a challenge of competence. The council reconvened. Korvath's voice cut through the lingering shame.
We will issue our own currency. The Galactic Exchange Unit. No more dollar dependence.
He's ordering me to build it, but a stable bank needs more than a decree.
Korvath appointed Vrenthal lead designer, granting full access to the Coalition's reserves.
Make it immune to politics. Prove we can be as boring and reliable as Earth.
Secretary, the Council will demand exceptions the moment a species faces a deficit. That's not stability.
On Earth, Edward Reeves addressed the press. No demands, no threats.
The dollar's dominance is not a policy we enacted. It is a choice made by trillions of transactions. We will not interfere.
The news reached the Coalition as Vrenthal began his design. The bet was quiet but clear. Earth expected failure. The Coalition had rolled the dice. The Galactic Exchange Unit was born under a shadow of doubt. Almost immediately, the demands flooded in. Species after species demanded exceptions, rate favors, special reserves.
Secretary, they're demanding escape hatches. This will be a political tool, not a stable bank.
I don't care. Launch it. We'll fix the flaws later. We need a victory now.
The GEU launched with a dozen compromises woven into its code. For a year, it limped along, gaining cautious acceptance on the promise of sovereignty. Then the Calaxian Consortium defaulted. A political coup cut their payments overnight. The market panicked. Within hours, a run on the GEU began.
The GEU lost 40% of its value before we could intervene. It's over, Secretary.
The Coalition's central bank collapsed after just 2 years. In the aftermath, USD adoption surged. The GEU design room fell silent. All that remained were the flickering blueprints of a currency that never was. Korvath slammed the data tablet against the wall. The first GEU was gone, but his rage was not spent.
We try again. Vrenthal gets full autonomy this time. No political exceptions. Design a bank that cannot fail.
He says autonomy, But the Council's rivalries are centuries old. No charter can insulate against that.
Renthal built a fortress of algorithms, transparent reserves, strict mandates, a bank designed to match Earth's discipline. But behind closed doors, the Council whispered, a credit line for the Fenir, a rate favor for the Zorath. The fortress cracked. The second GEU launched. For months it held. Then the Cathar Dominion defaulted on its war debts. Within weeks, the second currency collapsed faster than the first. The market had no patience left for political games.
We failed again, Secretary. Dollar adoption has reached 85%. The galaxy has spoken.
Korvath stared at the numbers, his silence heavier than any rage. 2 attempts, 2 failures. The Coalition's dream of monetary independence lay in ash. By 2410, the Coalition Council chamber was silent. Renthal stood to deliver his final report.
Dollar adoption has risen to 89%. The market has rejected every alternative.
No delegate objected. The fight had drained from the room.
Effective immediately. I resign as Treasury Secretary. The Coalition's monetary future is no longer mine to steer.
He placed his ceremonial seal on the table. An era ended with barely a whisper, light years away. Edward Reeves stepped down with a much different ceremony. Warm smiles, not defeat.
I am retiring. The dollar remains stable because we never made it a weapon. Elise will carry that forward.
Elise Reeves took the oath of office, her grandfather's $1 bill tucked into her pocket.
Earth's promise has never been dominance. It's simply reliability. We will not break that now.
The Coalition could only watch. The dollar had won without ever needing to fight. Years later, Renthal Kaur, retired and weary, walked the quiet halls of the new Galactic Monetary Museum.
Displays of failed currencies, the GEU, the Cathar mark, all swallowed by their own political rot.
Then he reached the central exhibit, a simple glass case bathed in soft light.
The institution that accidentally conquered the galaxy. I read the plaque. Then I read it again.
His 3 eyes widened. A century of investigation, of fury, of crashed currencies, all distilled into this aged paper.
They didn't scheme. They never demanded loyalty. They were simply reliable. A century of unbroken promises.
He reached out and touched the glass with a trembling, 3-fingered hand.
The galaxy never needed another currency. It needed a promise that was never broken.
He stood there for a long time, the weight of a career settling into something like peace. Then he turned away and walked into the light of the atrium. Not defeated, but humbled by the quietest conquest in galactic history. In the museum atrium, a young alien child pointed at the dollar symbol projected on the wall. She looked up at Renthal with curious, unblinking eyes. She had seen the dollar everywhere, in markets, on screens, but never understood its story.
It's not about strength, little one. It's about keeping a promise, century after century.
Light years away, Secretary Elise Reeves took the stage at the Galactic Financial Summit. Behind her, the dollar symbol filled the screen.
The dollar's dominance is not enforced by treaties or fleets. It is earned, transaction by transaction, through unbroken reliability.
Her grandfather's calm sat in her voice, a quiet confidence that required no threats. Across the galaxy, a merchant held a dollar bill to the light, the same green promise that had conquered without ambition.
We have no empire to defend, only a currency that the galaxy chose, and we will not betray that choice.
Far from the summit, a bustling market on a frontier world used nothing but dollars. Prices, wages, debts, all in the green of Earth. The dollar had become the galaxy's silent constant. Not by conquest, but by the simple, radical act of keeping its word. Night in the Treasury office. Elise sat alone, the Capitol dome glowing through the window behind her.
The same piece of paper grandfather held before the coalition. It feels heavier some nights.
Her gaze drifted to the small wooden frame on the corner of the desk. Edward's calm smile, frozen in retirement.
I wonder if he knew. Not just that the dollar would endure, but that it would become so much more than currency.
She placed the dollar bill beside the photo, lining up the edges with a quiet reverence that filled the silent room.
He always said the dollar was a mirror of our competence, a century of unbroken reflection.
Above her, the 1913 document hung in glass, a silent ancestor to the galaxy's unwilling trade. The city slept, but across light years, trillions of dollars changed hands, farm equipment, starship fuel, life insurance, all trusting a promise born in this building.
We didn't conquer the galaxy. We kept our word. And that was enough.
She turned off the desk lamp. The dollar bill glowed faintly in the dark, a green ember of the quietest empire ever built on a distant colony. A child folded a dollar bill into the shape of a bird, laughing as it fluttered in the breeze. In a bustling market, a human trader shook hands with an insectoid merchant. Above them, every price glowed in green dollar signs. A scholar on Cairo Squarf gave a lecture titled "The Accidental Empire," her holographic slides filled with Fed meeting minutes. A street vendor on a frontier world refused the last crumbling coalition credit, only accepting dollars for his grilled delicacies. A child asked her mother why the dollar was on every screen. The mother answered, "Because it always comes home." The university hall erupted in questions after the lecture. How did Earth do it? Why did no one else manage? A vending machine on a space station hummed quietly. Its only payment option was a slot labeled with a single green dollar sign. At the trading floor, new hires were taught the first rule of economics. The dollar is boring. That's the point. Even the coalition's old enemies now paid their war reparations in dollars. The irony lost on no one. The galaxy had chosen. Not with a vote, but with 100 trillion transactions. The dollar was simply there, like gravity. But it began, as empires sometimes do, with a small decision on a forgotten station in 2287. The freighter's captain, a hulking Arcturon, held out a worn scrap of green paper. The Gex trader, antennae twitching, examined it. Behind him, coalition credits had devalued again. He muttered, "I'll take it, since you people never inflate better than our own paper." The deal was struck. The freighter left with supplies. The trader pocketed the worn dollar. Within a year, 12 stations were using the same green notes for small cargo, and the number grew. A merchant would accept a dollar, realize its value held, and recommend it to the next trader. No treaty, no policy. Just the slow, organic spread of trust, unobserved by any central authority. By 2290, the dollar was a known quantity on the trade nexus, a sprawling hub of fringe routes. The institution on Earth knew nothing of this. It had merely kept its word for 2 centuries. Vrenthal tracked down the oldest trader he could find, a relic from the 2280s, now buried in a derelict station. The trader wheezed. "First time I took a dollar, I thought it would rot like our credits. It didn't." His voice broke into a dry laugh. "Never changed. Not in 100 cycles."
Why did you keep using it? There were other options.
"Because it was boring," the trader said. "And in money, boring is the highest praise."
A chill ran through him. This creature had no ideology, only the evidence of a promise kept.
The trader drew a folded dollar from his robe, smoothing it with reverence. That scrap of paper outlasted a dozen governments, and still he believed in it. Vrenthal nodded gratitude and left the dusty stall. Outside, the station's neon hummed, but inside him, a terrible awe grew.
It was never about power. It was about never breaking faith, century after century.
A junior economist, frustrated by the silence, published a damning memo. The coalition's own pension fund was 60% in US dollars. Kjörvath slammed his fist on the table. "Suppress it. Now." But the data had already breached containment. Within hours, the memo was on every public feed. The trading floor screens buzzed with the news. The coalition itself banked on the dollar. Outside the Economic Authority, a crowd gathered. Alien protesters waved signs. "We demand dollar equality." A merchant on the floor shouted, "Even our leaders don't trust their own credits," and the crowd roared in agreement. Vrenthal watched the demonstration from a high window. the protest reflected in his 3 dark eyes.
Find whoever wrote this and make an example. The Coalition's reputation cannot survive another leak.
But it was too late. The galaxy had seen the contradiction, and the dollar's quiet conquest was now fully public.
They built an empire of trust without an army, and our own hypocrisy just fueled their throne.
The protest chants echoed through coalition corridors, a dirge for a failed economic sovereignty that now seemed inevitable. Between the humiliation of the first GEU, failure, and the pressure to build a second, Renthal sent a discreet signal to Earth. Edward Reeves agreed to meet on a quiet station, far from prying eyes. He arrived alone, older but no less composed. They sat in a dimly lit cafe, a single dollar bill resting on the table between them.
How did Earth do it? What is the secret no coalition species can replicate?
There is no secret, Vrenthal. We simply do the boring work. We keep our word. Every day, for centuries.
Edward slid the dollar across the table, his old fingers steady. Keep it. A reminder that conquest isn't always loud. Vrenthal took the bill, its green ink crisp under the cafe's dim light. It felt heavier than any report he'd ever written.
Stability isn't a policy, it's a habit, and habits are hard to break.
He's right. A simple habit, repeated for centuries. That's what conquered us.
Vrenthal folded the dollar into his robe, a secret memento of an empire that won by inertia, not ambition. Months into the second GEU, an encrypted report landed on Vrenthal's desk. A council member had been rigging the exchange rate for his species.
Treachery at the highest level. The one thing I warned about, the GEU is now a political weapon, not a currency.
He confronted Korvath, slamming the evidence onto the table. The secretary's denial was instant, but the data spoke louder.
If this goes public, the GEU is dead. Bury it, Vrenthal. For the Coalition's sake.
Burying it would destroy any remaining trust. I have no choice but to publicly disown the design.
The next day, Vrenthal stood before a packed conference hall. Cameras from 100 worlds focused on his grim expression.
The Galactic exchange unit was compromised from within. As lead designer, I can no longer stand behind its integrity.
The market reacted instantly. The GEU plummeted, and even the cautious investors fled. Within months, trust evaporated entirely. The second GEU joined its predecessor in the graveyard of failed currencies. Alone in his office, Vrenthal pulled out the worn dollar bill from his robe and stared at it. The lesson was undeniable. In her first year, a data error on the Krell exchange triggered a flash crash. Markets across 3 sectors froze in panic. Elise sat in her office, a dozen holocalls from alien finance ministers blinking. Her voice never wavered.
The U.S. Treasury will provide a temporary liquidity line. Let the market see that the dollar's promise remains unshaken.
Within hours, the panic subsided. The dollar's green line held steady, an anchor in the digital storm.
Grandfather would say, "Never panic. Panic is the only true inflation."
The crisis became a testament. Journalists from across the galaxy requested an interview with the calm human at the center of the storm. An insectoid reporter asked, "Does Earth intend to rule the galactic economy?"
We don't claim the galaxy. The galaxy claims us, one transaction at a time. Our only policy is to remain reliable.
The interview clip went viral, spreading across networks. It became the unofficial motto of a new monetary era. In the quiet of her office, Elise touched the frame of the 1913 document, an unbroken promise, now a galactic trust. In retirement, Vrenthal Kaur began to write, not reports, but a memoir, an honest account of the quiet conquest that humbled the galaxy.
They called it an accident, but accidents don't last 2 centuries. Only discipline does.
The title appeared on his screen, The Uninvited Empire, How Earth Conquered the Galaxy Without Firing a Single Shot. He called it the greatest irony in galactic history, a species that never sought dominance, yet dominated entirely. The memoir was published on 12 human worlds, becoming an instant bestseller among humans. Humans read it with a mixture of pride and bemusement, discovering they had conquered by simply paying debts. But in the coalition, it was met with silence. No reviews, no commentary, as if the arrogant thesis were beneath notice. The irony was not lost on Renthal. They still could not face the truth that trust, not power, had defeated them. His memoir endured as a quiet testament, passed among economists who understood the terrible simplicity of its message. The historian had become part of the history he documented. His words a mirror held up to a galaxy that refused to look. Time passed. Empires rose and fell, but the dollar remained a quiet constant in the chaos. A single $1 bill drifted through the void of space, untouched by the wars and councils that raged around it. It needed no armies. It passed from hand to hand, alien and human, carrying only a promise. In the end, the galaxy chose the dollar. Not because Earth asked, but because Earth was the only one that never failed to keep its word. A promise first written on aged paper in 1913, now the silent backbone of a trillion worlds. Earth never claimed the stars. They simply paid their debts, and the stars came to trust them. The quietest empire ever built. Not of conquest, but of unbroken discipline. A single piece of green paper, vanishing into the light, leaving behind only the memory of trust, and the galaxy kept trading. In dollars. As it always had. As it always would.